I did it again. I forgot to hit a stupid button. How you doing? Wanted to let people in for a minute. Sorry, took a second. Wanted to talk about the game a little bit. Been a bad day. Kind of wanted to finish it on a high note. Do something positive. Just want to talk about this game. So the thing about the game was, I've brought it up before, years before I started working on it. Paracosmic Convergence. That's my game, and I've kind of been on and off on, you know, doing it. People could say, well, that means you don't have confidence. It's not that. I don't. It just looks like sometimes, it's just something anybody really wants. But um, what really made me pursue it more than anything was when people said, "Hey, you can't do that." Oh, now I really want to do it. I got tired of flipping around all these different kinds of games. I want to play my game where just remember the rules and it can do anything. So I don't have to keep buying more stuff, learning more stuff, or remembering more stuff because I have less memory, less room, and unfortunately less money than I used to have for all that stuff. So uh, the game is set up such that you could play a role playing game with it from any genre, but you could also play a miniatures game or a board game with it. Um, and I intend to put out modules that help facilitate that. Should the thing, you know, warrant further development, meaning if people buy it. so, uh, but the only way that that can be done is, you know, there's a problem with hyperbole in these game discussions, people's perceptions. You go from, well, either it's a coin flip or it's the hardest thing ever done. There's no real nuance. But uh, all you really need in order to be able to confront and handle all sorts of different genres of games is just a wee bit of input from the player. Nothing super hard, but it's not gonna, it's not a video game. So in order to do this, you have to have at least some thought, think some things through. What I did is I have one chart, one, you could call it a CRT if you wanted to be mean. It may even be accurate, but you don't have to call it that because CRT brings negative connotations in a lot of people. It shouldn't, but it does. You just call it a chart. Be nice. Well, there's people that do that, but there's also people that just, I mean, and when I say talking to people, I'm referring to discussions with people over a vast quantity of time and multiple platforms, some of which don't even exist anymore because old. But yeah, it would. You're going to have to put at least a little bit of something into it. So, but with being able to change that CRT just a wee bit from place to place, you can accommodate all these different types of genres. That's a good point. Is there really a difference? There probably is technically, but right offhand, I'm not sure. I guess I've always heard it referred to a CRT as a cross-reference table. So maybe you're right. Maybe table is it. But anyway, uh, yeah. Now I got to look that up just for so I sound more pithy. I don't know. I think there really is a difference if you really get down to brass tacks, but I think they're also interchangeable. I don't know, man. I gotta know. You, it's one of those Stephen Wright things. Now I gotta know. Now, when a doctor says they're looking at my chart, is there really anything on there that looks like a chart? Is that really the right phraseology, or is that medical slang? Now I gotta know. Yeah, right. Yeah, ask the robot. Ask the oracle. Exactly. But it's a. I mean, if I was going to be honest, and I wanted people to invoke what I was seeing, yes, CRT, combat resolution table, fair enough. But there's only one. There's only one. The difference, I mean, well, okay, again, technically not necessary. I mean, now we're getting into semantics. The values within the table change in order to accommodate the different things, but it's still the same chart. It's not like you got to learn a bunch of new things. The only difference is that in some cases, the result given at a certain cell is different. So does it technically become more than one chart at that point? Semantically, maybe. Point is you only need to use one at a time to play. So I'm sticking with saying it's just one chart. That still seems like it's tomato, though. You know what I mean? I mean, isn't that... Well, okay, at least when they're right. Now we know. All right. But, I mean, visual data, organized data for... Okay, so, all right. So a pie graph is a chart, but a CRT would be a table because... Okay, all right. Well, there you go. Okay, so it's a table to be perfectly accurate. But that's all it does is it changes the output for a variety of reasons. For example, you want to play the kind of... right, yeah, that's what I was... Yeah, but, like the kind of shit you see on economics classes and stuff like that. Sure, okay. So, but what about a graph? We got table, chart, and graph. Where's graph fit into this trifecta of... Oh. So if my hit is only words, then it's not a chart. But if it's got like a silhouette with a bullseye, then it is. I don't know, man. Anyway, but I was gonna do the body thing, and everybody's like, don't do that. And I was like, why not? That's kind of cool. No, don't do that. I got some stern lecturing about that. They said it doesn't work out with everybody. It becomes complicated to print because then you got to get an artist for that. And if you're going to do it for everything on the battlefield, people are going to get real pissed real fast because then they got to sort through and look at, oh, this is the tank one, this is the person one, and all that. I thought it was cool, but they're like, no, too much. So I said, nah. All right, then. So he dumped that one. I liked it, though, but fair enough. So now it's just, it's usually numbers. So here's what it is. Like if it's one person, I also like a lot of options. I hope this doesn't confuse people in the end of the day because I'm like, you can, it's like OD&D where you can be like, you can do it this way or that way, the alternative combat. Like, so the table can have like body parts in it that you hit, or it can have numbers. Either way. Here's the other thing I did. I didn't want to do hit points like hit points before. So everything is about 1 to 100. That's going to be like my niche trademark. It's all about 100, 1 to 100. So what happens is you have scale. So if you're fighting something that's big, it's got 100 hit points. If you're smaller than it, you also have 100 hit points. Difference is that when you poke something giant with a 3-foot stick and it's a 30-foot tall thing, that's not going to, it's like shooting a bear with a 22, you'll just piss it off. You won't, so you'll have a scale modifier so that the damage will be much less than if you use the same, 3-foot sword against somebody that was, an average human being. So instead of having giant amounts of hit points because you've got a giant amount of monster and you've got to count backwards from some huge number or something like that, you're always counting back from 100. It's just that, it's a slower count back if it's a bigger thing. So, who are these stern lectures? I liked your easy to photocopy and hand out statement. Oh, yeah. Oh, the stern lecturing about not using One guy, I don't see him anymore. He's a Mexican comic book guy. He's like, don't people have done that stuff and it just becomes insane. There was some 40K people once upon a time that said, yeah, no, don't do that. But yeah, they were. What I wanted to do was I was going to have, here's a helicopter silhouette. Here's the side of one. Here's the front of one. The top of one. And depending on the angle of attack of your shot, you choose the right chart. And then you roll a die, and it shows you where you've hit. But Bill was another one. He's like, fuck those. I hate, everything that's ever had a hit chart is one of those games that takes 2 hours to play 20 minutes type of thing. They insisted that it slowed the game down. But I played with them before, and I didn't feel that was the case. But it might have been with mine because I didn't want just one or two. I wanted one for every kind of thing conceivable, from from a person to an airplane to a battleship to a spaceship and all that. So there would have been a stack of them a mile high. Yeah. Sometimes, man, I went to a regional retailers meeting in south of Chicago, and I went into this 40K place, and it was kind of surreal. Some of these people were really bizarre dudes, really weird. This was a long time ago. This was way before all the current insanity, and they were still real weird dudes. And but then I met the actual 40K, like not the top people, but the regional sales manager or whatever for the Midwest area. They were a co-team, Blake and Blair, and they were British. Oh, no, did not like these guys. Nobody did. It was really a wild thing. But yeah, but there was one version of 40K. It might have been the original, now that I think about it, where you had the silhouette of the vehicle that you were attacking and I guess we've identified this as a table now, but it was cross-referenced. So you rolled 2 dice, and one was for the column, one was column, row, right? Yeah. And anyway, so then you cross the 2, like a 6 and a 6. So that crosses here, and that's the place on the tank that was hit by my plasma launcher or whatever the hell. And I thought that was kind of nifty, but everybody's like, oh, no, it slows the game down way too much. So I gave up on that. And I thought, well, okay, great. If people don't like that, that's fine. That saves me money in production cost. So on the flip side, if people did like it, I could have sold those cards, just made more and more of them. Here's a new set with all the tanks from Halo or whatever, but of course you'd have to pay the licensing. But anyway, so I just gave up on that. I said, all right, fine. So now everything's 1 to 100. Everybody's got 1 to 100. The scaling and the damage and all that, it's not like you still have +1 swords and things like that, and they add to whatever you roll for damage. So it's not super stale or anything like that. You still get the flavor of magic swords and strength bonuses and things like that. But instead of anyway, so that was one thing I did. And everything's on a chart. And then what you can do is, like, let's say you're playing a hex encounter war game. So it's still 1 to 100. So when you roll damage, or when you got a successful attack, it'll say how many casualties were imposed. So you took 20% casualties. Okay, so now you're at 80% of where you were. So that requires a little bit of mathematics. So that might kill people, but as far as appeal, if you can just swallow that pill, then the game can play anything you want. You could take an old Avalon Hill game, and with just a slight modification to the original rules, you could use my combat system and have that instead of the one they use. And it would actually be slightly more realistic because you're not losing steps, you're losing percentages. Or you can make your own. But it was the quickest and easiest way to make everything scale and work together without a bunch of gimmicks and shit like that. But you know, you might have to multiply a number by a decimal with a calculator. If that's a deal breaker, I don't know what to do. But I mean, I've seen people complaining about having to add numbers together for encumbrance, and that's why I keep going. Well, this sounds like a great idea, but maybe it's a great idea in 1978. Maybe it's not such a great idea in 2024, and that's why I keep going. Maybe I made a huge mistake. Yeah, BattleTech is like an SAT test. The original BattleTech, you had to fill in circles. So you did 20 points of damage to the arm, you had to fill in 20 circles. And shit, that maybe that's why I'll end up having carpal tunnel at the end of life, because it was a little bit much. But yeah, they did that, and it had a 2d6 you rolled, and it would tell you where you hit the robot as far, whether it be the chest or the arm or whatever. It was a 2-hit chart like that. Nobody complained about that. But what I was talking about doing was just putting the dice numbers on the different parts of the mech. So like 6 would be the heart, and 1 would be the head, and then like that. And you look at it and you roll and say, okay, that's where I hit it. And people went, no, don't do that. Don't. Then I said, well, what about custom dice? And this makes sense to me. This complaint I get. They said, don't do custom dice. It'll cost you a ton of money, and it makes the player have to chase them down. They never get made in the quantities needed. If you lose one, now you have to special order a special die. Whereas if you don't do that, I can steal a die out of the Yahtzee box and still play the game. And that makes sense. And again, it saved me money and headache trying to figure out how I would get custom dice inside of a package to people. So easy. Well, I mean, right, and that's it. I mean, if two people, I mean, I hate to sound, but my reality is, I don't have to be the next D&D. I don't expect to be the next D&D or anything like that. But if I go through 2 years of development, or the hell, it's more than that, but the production has been 2 years, and I print 15 of these things, I sell 2 and go, oh, well, at least somebody liked it. That's not going to bode well for me. There's a lot of people in if they're in, like that Aaron guy that's doing D10. Clearly he's got, and I'm sure this is the case with many people. They have a life outside of making the game. It's just a lark. It doesn't matter if they make money or not. Me, I kind of hedged all my bets on this thing, and a lot of people can go, well, then you're a fucking idiot. Well, don't need to be informed of that at this point. So I'm kind of got myself in the corner, and I got to make it where at least more than a couple people find it interesting. And that's why I'm super sensitive about people going, well, it sounds like it's too complicated. Because I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm not going to sell this to anybody. Yeah, all that stuff is super cool, but I do think people are right that, and a lot of it came from things like FFG, Star Wars, where they had all those custom dice. People said that was a pain in the ass. You needed a certain amount of them, and if you lost them, you had to go to the company, and there was never enough of them. They became this rare commodity. And then as soon as the companies said, well, okay, we're moving on to something else, then it's even harder to find those kinds of dice, because now the retailers have stopped carrying them too. And that makes perfect sense. So I dumped it quickly. maybe someday when I got a little bit more money and I can add it in. So that's a lot of the stuff we decided. Hey, if you really get somewhere with it and you want to make the deluxe, or something like that, or need add-ons where here's some custom dice and stuff like that, that would be great. The other thing is, even if people wanted that stuff, how am I going to do it? I live in somebody else's apartment. I don't really have any of my own room. And I don't have anybody that I could pay to put those dice in a box. I don't have a box that I even can produce. All I can produce is books and maps, stuff like that can be either printed out or downloaded. Getting into packaging turns everything into a completely different situation. Now I've got to, because I can't go to one source. Lulu won't do boxes and dice. It'll only do print. There's no one that does everything. The only people that do everything, there's one called Game Crafter, but they don't make big enough books. And from what I've heard, the books they do make are absolute shit. They're more about making plastic pieces for custom prototyping of games, which is neat. But if you want a decent book, you'd have to go to Lulu. Okay, well, now I've got products from one company and products from another company, and they're in physically different places. How do I get those two together to put them in one package? And if I do that, now I've got to make all the packages, store them somewhere, either in this house or in a storage facility. Now I'm talking more money for that, and plus shipping and get all that bullshit. Where if I just go to Lulu and make my game manual, drop shipping it and all that. So that's why I kind of got to dump all the cool accessories, at least for now. But I really think it would be neat to have custom dice that just say, here's where you hit. The problem is with that is what I want to do is have it be the two hit, not a die you roll secondarily to determine where you hit. It should be all one roll. And then to do that, then you have to have dice faces that also say miss. So it's one thing to write, leg and arm on the face of a 12-sided die, but to try to get that to work on the face of a 20-sided die or something, now people are looking at it with a microscope to read it. Or you're using symbols, and then people go, which one does this symbol mean? And all that shit. And then they get pissed. That was a problem with the Star Wars game. They use symbols. And then you had to learn that, like you had to learn new language. And it was obnoxious until you got a swing of it. So I just went with a 1 to 100. And I thought, if you can't, you did 26% damage. So all you're doing is 0.26 minus 100. And if that's too much math, can't help you. PDF and POD are the easiest, cheapest option. There was a long time when I didn't even know what the F vector graphics meant versus any other. I took a Photoshop course, like a 101 night class. 5 or 10 years. It was CS2. That's how long ago it was. And I wasn't very good. I don't remember a damn thing about it. And so I'm awful with that shit. So that's why I slowed down initially, because I got hammered about the AI stuff. Then I was thinking, okay, well, if I can't use AI because no one will buy it, now I've got this entirely new obstacle. How am I going to get art? How's it going to look good? How am I going to afford it? All that shit. And I thought, well, you'll never afford it, so you'll have to do it yourself. That's not going to happen. So, but I'll just say, Miguel's doing it. The Red Room people, they got AI and no one's riding their ass. I mean, sure, they're banned from whatever, but drive-through RPG wasn't going to be my thing anyway. So I figure, well, like you say, just put the AI in there and get everybody to bird. And, somebody else told me the same thing. He said, oh, it was Bear. Bear said, he goes, you know what? if they weren't going to buy it because you had AI in it, they weren't going to buy it to begin with anyway. Which I thought, yeah, you're probably right. And then 20 minutes later, he was telling everybody how you'd get sunk on sales if you used AI. So he kind of contradicted himself, but whatever. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, you can scale up the size, but then there's two problems. How do you fit in a package, and how, you know, you know, there's bulk versus weight. You got to put it inside a box to give to people. Um, so either way, you start running into some logistical issues with doing something like that. But it's another reason I started thinking, well, people hate charts. What are you going to do? So I just made a chart that had body parts in it and left it at that. And that way you roll on the chart and it tells you where you still get the effect, even though you got to glance at the chart. It's just easier. And that's what some people said too. They said, if you're going to do hit locations, don't put them on a silhouette or any of that fancy shit. Just write it out in a table, like Star Wars does or something like that. Yeah. So I went with that, and that way so if you're going mano a mano, it's like, one soldier equals one soldier, and they're shooting each other. You do have the option to have, you hit here or you didn't, that kind of thing. But you can also do it with the hit points if people just prefer to use hit points. They're always 1 to 100, stuff like that. So if you're playing, like I got like something like Cops and Robbers, where it's supposed to be real, or like Tax Squad, and it's supposed to be highly lethal, then, bullets tend to do 50, 75, 100 points of damage with one shot. You're not going to be Tupac, or there's that too. You can change it. There's another mode where you use a different chart, and if you want to play, with like guns, but you want plot armor or whatever, then you can take more than 2 or 3 hits and still live. And I did the same thing with fantasy. You can play heroic fantasy, where the chance of death is much smaller because the damage is adjusted. Or you can play low fantasy kind of stuff like I do, where if you get hacked by a giant axe in the, you could lose your head or something, or just lose a lot of hit points, dependent. That way people can just pick and choose. They can play the game. They can play it they want without having to, figure out how they're going to form fit a bunch of custom rules or whatever. So, and that works. Then it works for everything. Like I said, I could play war games with it, miniatures with it, RPGs with it, whatever. So it's all set up for that. And that way, if it does become something people want to play, I can actually make other games for it. I can, here's my, I don't know, Invasion of Normandy Paracosmic. Use the Paracosmic war game chart version, and make the little tiles and everything for people, and the map, and they just lay it out, and they use that part of the book that talks about playing war games. If they want to, play BattleTech without super tough BattleTech rules, then they just play that one. That way you can just go on. And that was the idea, is to be something for everybody. So it had the idea of economics and not having to learn 1,000 rule sets to play a bunch of different genres. Just playing everything. I've played quite a bit of it. I don't have a social circle who games, so I don't have anybody who will, other than the Magenta and one other fella, but we have played it a lot. So I haven't found anything that makes this idea not work, um, other than it does require a little bit of, math. So, which might be enough given the way people talk about it. So, like if you're going to shoot a rifle at somebody, what you do is you measure the range and you subtract the range from 100. That gives you a percentile chance to hit. That can be modified by other factors. If you want them to, you can pick and choose your modifiers. You can have none, which is you play your way. I find that dumb, but okay. Or you can have a bunch of modifiers: moving, target, hiding behind cover, whatever. And so you modify that percentile. But first you have to subtract from 100. If you can't do it, or you don't want to do it, then bummer. I mean, I could make a chart that just says, 99 all the way back. But okay. But then what that does is it makes then they got to reference that. And they're complaining about having to reference. And if they don't want to or don't have, I mean, I think at this point, copy machines are so antiquated, most people don't have access to them anymore. And you can't put a book in a flatbed scanner. So I guess people got some more legitimate gripes about having to use a book with charts in it than they used to. So what I was thinking was inside the book, or maybe on a receipt or something, you would get a like a download key where you could download a PDF. The problem with giving people, I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you want to give it away to a bunch of people, fine. I'd prefer not to. I'd prefer to find a way to get the PDF of charts locked so it only goes to customers. But one way or the other, you could always do that. And then they can use that on their phone or they can print it out as they please. That might be the solution to that. So they could have the combat charts instead of the combat calculation. But there'll be people that bitch about either one. So, I tried to get it all, at least the combat, to be percentile based. If not, I was thinking of making it all percentile based, actually, changing some things, because I just felt like the more people don't have to change dice, they start complaining about that too. So that was my idea. And then I said to people, I says, I think, I said, I got a one person who kind of advises me, and I says, I don't know if the percentile is really the way to go. And they said, no, why not? There's a lot of people that it's the easiest way to conceptualize what you're trying to do. You can say, oh, I've got a 50-50 chance. I've got a 75% chance. That makes sense, instead of having to, oh, well, what does it mean that I have to shake 3 out of 4 or under a 3 or whatever? So that's what I heard. So I went that way. I don't know if that's pans out to be true with gamers or not, but the other thing was percentile is swingy. And some people go, I don't like swinging. Well, it's combat. It's not predictable. It shouldn't have a bell curve, in my opinion. So that's what I was thinking of doing. But I mean, it doesn't really require, like, I don't know what people think I mean when I complain about the math part, or that doing a little bit of math is a problem, but I'm literally talking about subtracting, just elementary school shit. If you're fighting a submachine gun in a World War II game, subtract the range from 50 and multiply it by 2. It gives you a percentile chance to hit. Is that too much math? Maybe it is. And maybe no one will like it. Somebody let me know. What the hell was that? Oh, that one. Let's see. Did I? No, I did not. So, anybody else got any questions, comments, cut downs, whatever? Sorry, I was doing my Twitter while there was a lull in the action. Well, anyway, I wanted to try this too. All right. Yeah, no, I did. I just did. Um, I found some 5200 Atari 5200 and Atari 2600 stuff. Um, but I didn't find any more Nintendo stuff. I found more sites that say they had Nintendo, and then I looked at them and they all have the same stuff from that first one. Like they just copied it and put it out there. I didn't see any new titles or anything like that. So I'm going to keep looking to see if somebody has the entire Sega catalog. And I wanted to see if I could find out if that NES thing really is the entire catalog. I don't think so. They really made a lot of games. I wonder if it says how many, the total. According to the NES encyclopedia, their conservative estimate is 876 games. A wider estimate, like that of Wikipedia, put the total at 1,300. But they're probably talking about releases across the globe versus releases specifically for the US. That would be my guess. So I don't know if there was 800 in that list. There's probably other places to go to find more. But I'm such a fuddy duddy. I want, I'm old. I wanted to go get my Atari stuff if it was possible, as much of it. I had a line on that, and there was two problems. I should go look it up. I had somebody that sent me some, but I didn't know how to use it, and he passed away. um, but yeah, I remember it had a giant price tag on it, but that was years ago, so maybe it's come down. No, I found the artwork though. I found the artwork. Where did I put the? Oh, I can't put it up. I'll have to send it to you if I open the folder of my pictures online. I got a lot of pictures. Some are better than others, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I did. I found the artwork, but I have not been able to find the actual title of it that I can recall. I don't think I did. But yeah, it looked pretty neat. But yeah, I got to get that one. Maybe it's in that Japan stuff. I didn't even think to look. I was too busy kind of cruising everything else. So, um, but I really want to try to get, like you say, it's technically piracy and all that. But here's the thing: my other justification, and it may not stand in a court of law, but if I own it and I can't run it on today's computer and I want to emulate it, I don't. I own it. So I wanted to get some of the old MicroPro stuff because I have all that stuff still. But it's it's for, I think some of it's for DOS 3.0 if I remember right, and you can fuck around with that all day. You'll never get to run, but maybe on an emulator. And I wanted to play a lot of like we were saying, the video game consoles are great, but I think that the late 80s and early 90s PC stuff was some of the most bitchin' shit to play ever. I want to play some old Red Storm Rising and F-19, even stuff a little bit earlier like Police Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, Wizardry. There's one game I got so damn mad at it when I was young that I never even finished it. And I saw it somewhere. I want to get it. It was called Thexter. It was made in Japan. It was the only Japanese title I bought for a Tandy. Yeah, I thought about doing that. And so for Christmas, I had $50 and I was looking at MicroPros. And I thought, two things. I have those games. I don't really feel like paying for the same real estate twice, to quote the patent phrase. And they were a little bit more expensive than the Star Wars stuff that at the time. They were selling the Star Wars games like LucasArts stuff from the 90s for like $2 a cop. Like I got Jedi Knight for like $2.50. So I went and bought all that, just kind of maximize the $50 card that I got. And that was cool, but I started trying to play some of them and they don't fucking work. One game, all they did was sell you the game packaged with DOSBox. And I was downloading games for free packaged with DOSBox. I have Empire. Like, here's a real early one. Well, not real early, but I liked Empire, the strategy game Empire. That's what, like 84? Pardon me. And I got that to run on DOSBox. But I don't need to. I mean, I know I'm going to get in trouble, and some people, oh, you're a big pirate and a thief and all that. But come on, And some of them don't work at all. Well, they work, but like Galactic Battlegrounds. Okay, cool. That's a fun game. I paid for that, but it doesn't. The multiplayer doesn't work at all. Well, if you're going to tell me that you've made a game compatible with, then it either all completely is compatible or it's full of shit. And if you're going to sell me half the game, I'm going to save 50% of that and, just download it because, fuck you. But, yeah, that much I know because the ones that I got from whatever source, I downloaded them. They were Amiga games mostly, but they ran on DOSBox, and I have them on a well, it's not a flash drive, but it's an external, and they ran fine. I mean, most of them do. There's some DOSBox, like the site says, for whatever reason, we can't get this game to work for whatever reason. So they'll give you a list of things that don't work with it. So it's not a guarantee, but I got Empire to run. Hell, I even got Warcraft 2 to run with DOSBox. But there again, it runs, but no cutscenes and no multiplayer. And okay, but the whole point of Warcraft was at the height of LAN parties. The whole appeal of that game is to play with other people. So it was fun. I went through the campaign, and I played a couple of the auto-generated. But if I can't link up with other people, yawn. So I stopped buying the stuff because of that reason. But like I said, I did get all the SSI stuff. A couple I didn't even know existed. Um, I never had Warcraft 3, but it did look more 3D. I did. I mean, just from memory of looking at the package, but I never owned it to play it. I only had number 2. But yeah. hmm So, uh, but yeah, at that point, if you can't play online, what's the point? Now, there's one site that claims that they can facilitate uh, online play, but I've heard people say it absolutely works, and I've heard people say it absolutely doesn't work. And you have to download their software. And I was like, I'm gonna find out before I download something that might, have some bullshit in it, um, as to whether that would actually work. So, and then on top of that, uh, I believe this is that the way Spectrum, my local ISP, has things set up, it really doesn't matter. It still won't work. And I believe that. I'll test it anyway, but yeah, if I can find it to play online with you and other people, that would be excellent, because it would be fun to play. I've never, like I say, I'll try 3. I haven't played it, but how different can it be? I loved that stuff. Dune. Dune was another fun one when it worked. That was a game that just had shitty bugs. It didn't work even when it was fresh out of the box for a lot of people, but I'd give it a whirl. Um, Command and Conquer. That would be another fun one to play. Uh, RTS from the 90s is fun in moderation. I really got into it, and then I realized, you know what? All this shit's the same. It's the same game with different graphics after a while. And it kind of got boring, and I went somewhere else. But it's been a long time. I'd love to try it. Yeah, that would be fun too. I had the one I was really looking forward to, and then there again, the multiplayer kind of uh, made it less appealing. But there was what was it called? Fantasy General. It was called Fantasy Empires. It was kind of the battle system, but that's a fun one. Um, there's one called Stronghold, and I don't remember that one, but it's like a castle builder. So I wanted to try that too. I thought I knew all the ones that they made, but I don't remember that one. I used to like I think that was the best value was when games had that stuff. I had a lot of war games that had it too. Um, TIE Fighter, you could download a third party that made a mission editor, and it was super kick ass. And they made one for X Wing versus TIE Fighter too. And it just made a game that, okay, I played the hell out of it and I finished it 3 times. Now what do I do with it? Now you can just keep going and going, because you can make all these changes. That was the best of times, um, in my opinion. Yeah, yeah. I I don't I don't know. I don't. Here's the thing: the graphics never impressed me as much as the gameplay, even in game. I'm a weirdo like that. I know most people don't care. I don't care, but to me, it's not that I don't appreciate it. I don't. I have fun with, like, if I had the original Wolfenstein, I'd have fun playing that right now. Duke Nukem from the 90s. Sure, it does, it's, but that game was so fun. And to me, when you start redoing them, okay, but how much hardware do I need to buy in order to be able to run that? And then you got to deal with, is it going to work right? Has it been made correctly? because a lot of they redid Battlefront, the Star Wars one. Not the well, the new ones had their problems too, but then they tried to remake the original Battlefront 2 and sell it to people, and they fucked it all up. It was filled with more bugs than the original. So I just sometimes I gets on. I've gotten to the point where I just assume whatever they're pumping out is crap, whether it be not just because it's a bad uh, idea, but because the quality is shit. I never played Morrowind. I heard a lot of people talk great about it. For whatever reason, I never did end up getting. There was a lot of games where I don't know why. Maybe it was money or I was just into something else at the time where I heard, and that was one where I heard it was excellent and I don't remember ever playing it. But and I mean that's a neat thing about some of this emulator stuff because you can go back and go, that one game that I never got to play for whatever reason and discover it as if it's brand new because it kind of is. Yeah, yeah. That's and then sometimes that's nothing new. Like I bought Activision. This is my funniest stamp story, at least to me. Activision when they first came out with the first retro that they came out with was Action Pack or something like that. And this was when Pentium was brand new. And I had a Pentium 75 Acer with a Cirrus Logic chip on it, video chip on it. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't play these games. And I thought, why in the hell not? That was a 4 megahertz processor in that Atari, and I was using an old Zenith TV. Why the hell can't this, thousands of dollars a new computer? So I called up Cirrus Logic. I had stock in Cirrus Logic at the time. I used to actually have money where I could do shit like that. And so I called up Acer tech support, and I got this chick, and she was just an asshole. And I was really pissed as a stockholder and as a customer of Acer. I was really mad at the service. So I finally got the. At one point, I said to her, "I go, this really is ridiculous. I have an original Atari. It's 20 years old or 30 years old or whatever, and it will run this game." And she bitch just yelled at me and says, "Then why don't you play it on that?" And hung up on me. And that's when I called back and asked for the manager. The guy apologized. He says, "We only have 2 tech support people." Cirrus Logic was a massive corporation at the time. They had 2 people. And I never did get that thing to run on that Acer. It was Windows 3.1 shell with the DOS. Wouldn't do it. I ended up getting it at PlayStation years later and playing it that way. But yeah, there's a lot of that kind of crap. There was a couple games that I had that just never ran right because I couldn't afford the hardware. And then years later, I had them, and I go, "Oh, I forgot that I still got that game. Now that I've got all this RAM, I can play it." And then I put it in there, and some other fucking reason it doesn't work. One game I never did play. It was always too much. I thought it was going to run on my computer. It was a racing game. I really, really wanted to play because it had a good mod. And it was too much for my computer. And then I bought the next computer, had an operating system, and it wouldn't run after that. I've never played that game, and I've had it for 15, 20 years. Yeah, 2. Yeah, only 2. And Cirrus Logic, not just because they had 2 people, but, just trying to save a buck. So, and the guy's like, she's a little stressed because she's got to handle everything east of the Mississippi, and the other guy's handling everything west of it. For the whole fucking continent. Holy shit. So, but yeah, it was stupid. It's just, when you can't get stuff to work even after all that time. So it's nothing new, but it just irks me with Steam because in a lot of cases you're paying for something you already own because it won't work. And then they claim they've done something to make it work. And then you see they haven't done a fucking thing. They're just taking your money and rolling the dice. It may work, it may not. So, and I bought, well, it wasn't me. I got a Christmas present where my wife bought me some giant package deal. It's got all of the Quake, not Quake. What the hell is it? And I just never had the time to do it. Not Quake. What the hell? Half-Life. It had all the Half-Life stuff. I have everything Half-Life, and I've owned it so long. I think it used to work, and now it probably doesn't. Even on Steam, like they shut some of the servers down and stuff like that. But there'd be another one that I played Half-Life when it was new, FPS, against people. Excuse me, and it was a lot of fun. And there's other things. There was Day of Defeat, which was a World War II Half-Life mod, and you could have an editor, and it was one of the more realistic first-person shooters for World War II, and I always wanted to play it, but now I don't even know if the servers run even on Steam, and if they do, there's probably 3 people playing it. But anyway, enough of the bitching. It's still cool to play all this old stuff when it does work. But that's why I just I'm not really crying if I'm getting it from illicit sources, because paying for it is just getting a screw job anyway. So I do. Let's see, where's that one place that I do have a couple? They're Amiga, but they're good. Shit, I can't think of the name now. Anyway, there was a site. It was, if you're going to use this site, once I get the name of it, you got to use a pop-up blocker. God, I can't think of the name. It's been so long. I can't think of it. It may be down, but I was using it for a long time. Most of the stuff they had was Amiga, but it went down for a while. When I came back, there was pop-ups on every corner of the thing. And but for a while, it was a great place to get some DOSBox games. They would download a package, like a bootstrapper, so you didn't have to configure anything. But I can't think of it anyway. But yeah, I'd love to play some of those. God, I wish something like the Gaming Zone was back, though, where you could just connect over the internet to play. Anyhow. But yeah, my little board game, my little Paracosmic Convergence. I don't know. I want to. What did I do? I got the thing written out mostly. I went and chose some art that was ink line drawing, and then I was Magenta. Magenta said her mother, of all people, could do a good cover for a good price, and bless her for that attempt. But her mother is in. I don't think her mother can do it. Not that she doesn't have the talent. I've seen the things she does art-wise, and she was very talented. But she's also very old and very decrepit, and I don't think she's up to the task. So I was thinking of using royalty-free art and photography to make some collage for the cover. Not exactly the what I really wanted, but something that kind of covers the fact that it's all sorts of genres. And I know she's even older than me, so you really know she's. But But yeah, she's poor thing's in a lot of, she's got some fairly bad health issues. So, but Magenda's like, oh no, she likes to draw in her bed while she's, okay, well, she comes up with it. That's great. I don't want to, if she does it and she does it on time, fine. But I don't want to make it a kind of thing where I'm hounding some old broad that's got a foot in the grave to, hey, give me my art, So just, if it comes, it comes. Otherwise, I'm gonna, I'll do the collage thing. So, but other than that, it's just where I had it written up, and then I gave it to Magenta to just give this a once over. She's like, don't you think you should change this, that, and the other thing? And don't you think that? And I go, I kind of like the way it was arranged. She goes, oh, no. I thought, okay, well, she probably knows better than me because I haven't done a lot of marketing, and I don't really understand people very well. So she says it would be clearer in this. So we're redoing it, the format. Then the other thing that happened was that Alyssa Hazel gal, she says, here's a better way to format it for printers. And she gave me this coaching thing and all that. She goes, if you've already gone down some other path, you should probably do this for the next one because you have to undo everything. Okay, duly noted. Well, then I gave it to Magenta, and she goes, hey, I got to change all this stuff anyway. And I'm like, well, if we're going to unravel the knot, then we might as well. So we're doing the whole thing to format it and all that so it can be printed. Yeah. So now we did three episodes of Star Wars where we used a version of the combat to play it out. I didn't do a lot of describing of it, but a little bit. They got fairly surprising. Some of them got record views, even though it wasn't the greatest because she's had a cold and she was tanked up on NyQuil. It was like she was kind of drunk, and but she did it. She played for 2.5 hours a night for 3 nights, and we got through this. It shouldn't have taken that long, but I gave, I told everybody, I says, give her some slack. She's got a cold, and seemed like it was popular. So that's one we did. There's one back in June we did that shows some of the RPG part of it. So even though Star Wars had a little bit of RPG in it. So, but the art thing was really what set me back because I just, God, you got to be able to sell this to people. I still don't know if it'll sell to anybody. But if you're shooting something at somebody, like a crossbow or whatever, it's range minus 100 and modifiers. I don't know. So if you're 50 feet or whatever away, then you start out with a 50-50 chance to hit. And if it's, if somebody's behind cover or something like that, then it's like a 35% chance to hit. All that sort of stuff. I don't know. How's that sound as far as a combat mechanic? Too much? Too much math or what? I don't know. And the melee is well. I don't know what the ellipses mean though. does that mean? I don't know. I don't know if that's something that would make people balk, that they would have to figure it out every time they made the shot. But you can do that, or or look at a bunch of charts to get the same answer. I don't know. I don't know. I keep thinking, I don't know. People are going to think this is too complicated, probably. So, but that's the only roll. There's no. That's not just a hit. Um, that gives you the damage as well. So if you have, like, say you have a 75% chance to hit, and uh, you know fire an arrow, something like that. So if you roll under, because it's percentile, let's say you roll a 65. So that tells you hit. It also, you look at the chart and it tells you how much damage is done. 13 points, which could be, might be modified by armor or something like that. If the guy's got the right kind of armor, it might be -2, so it might be 11 points of damage or whatever. But it's just the one roll that gives you both did you hit and how much damage you do all at the same time. Single roll, but a percentile roll. So I don't know. What do you think? Too much? I don't know. I don't think I think maybe that's too old man, old school stuff for people. I don't know. I mean that I don't know. I don't know. Easy enough for me, but whatever. Yeah, I don't think. I get the feeling it's going to be a problem. And I'm trying to think of something that did that in the past, and the only thing that can come up in my old mind is Phoenix Command, and of course everybody said Phoenix Command was way too much. Oh, well, like I say, what do you think about that? Um, Having to do that kind of math in order to come up with a 2-hit. I get the, like I say, people start saying Phoenix Command and Bile 1 probably. And melee is a competitive die roll. So whoever win, like if you're attacking, there's a competitive die roll with the defender. If the defender rolls high, they parry, and then you do it again, but now the other guy or the other person or monster or whatever is the attacker, and you just kind of parry back and forth until there's a blow landed, and the blow landed is depending on what weapon you're using, it's in one of the columns of the chart. So you roll a second time to see how much damage was done, and again that damage is mitigated by whatever circumstances you want to apply. The other thing I've done is everything is a la carte as far as modifiers or whatever. You have to you sit down with it as a group, DM, player, and all that, and just like playing, cards where the dealer picks the game, you go, here's all the modifiers we're going to use, no matter how many or how much, you just all decide, and then so it can scale. I've got a list that's extensive, but nobody has to use the entire list. They can just go, I don't give a shit about that, but I want a moving target to be harder to hit. Okay, well then put that one in, and then you all know which ones you're using at the beginning of the game. So if you're doing melee, armor mitigation, good armor makes the damage less. Okay, stuff like that. So I don't know. I think people just hear the word percentile and go, "Oh, it's Rollmaster. I don't want to play that." I don't know. Well, you're okay. So if you're as far as the resolution, you're the range is the first thing if you're shooting. So you or the DM or whoever, how far away from the target am I? You know, subtract that number from 100 if it's an arrow, if you're a bow or a crossbow or something like that. So whoever does the math, whether it be the DM or the player, that's your base chance to hit. Now that can be modified by whether circumstances you want, moving target, behind cover, too dark to see well, whatever the hell you want to come up with to add as a potential modifier. And then you roll to hit. You got to get under that. And then on the chart, whatever you roll, as long as it's under the percentage chance to hit, then you cross-reference it with, arrow or whatever, crossbow bolt, whatever, and there'll be a column cross-reference, and it'll tell you how much damage is done. So, right, and then so there really isn't any armor class or anything like that to figure out. Armor just takes damage off. If you're hit and you've got no armor, it may, like maybe it's 15 or 16 damage that's being done. But if you were to have armor, the armor takes, maybe it's heavy armor takes off 5 points of damage or something like that. So it just immediately mitigates the amount of damage done because you've got the armor on instead of going through armor class and all that crap. And so everything's just based on modifiers, plus and minus modifiers. Good things add, bad things take away, something like that. And I think it's faster because you're not looking up. I don't know, but that's probably just a matter of perception. Maybe, I don't know. I guess with D&D, I guess the bottom line answer is I don't know if it's faster or slower. It's just a different means of attaining the answer. Both are asking what happens when you swing a sword at dude. You know what I mean? I don't know. So if it's there's still saving throws. I got saving throws in there. They kind of work essentially the same way, but instead of like D&D where you've got saving throw versus poison and gas and death ray and all that, it's just it's a modifier. Like there isn't a saving throw versus poison. There is a poison with a modifier. Like basic weak poison maybe doesn't have a modifier to your saving throw, but maybe it's some, made distilled from the venom of a tarantula or whatever the hell. Okay, well then maybe that's -3 because it's so deadly that you roll with a penalty to your saving throw to to account for its extra potency as a poison or whatever. So you only have one saving throw. It's based on that. And then there's magic. If you're in fantasy, the magic is not terribly different, but there's some differences. There's different disciplines. Like, have you ever played Heroes in Might and Magic? The strategy part of that world, where I don't know if you played that, but you can get the books. Like there's a air magic book. It got stuff like that. There's different magic tomes that have a list of, and based on your attributes, it'll tell you how many of those books that you can remember and work with at a time, instead of the same spell book for everybody. So the intent of that is to kind of make magic users different, instead of just being I'm a guy with a white beard, a pointy hat that can throw fireballs, and you're a guy with a white hat, pointy hat and white beard that can throw lightning bolts or something like that. Magenta played a magic user that was just an orphaned elf that grew up in a hut in a forest and was raised by a druid. So her magic is very earth-based and plant-based and stuff like that. Then she made another character, and was a magic user, but a completely different magic user that grew up in a city as a not the queen or anything, but was like a noble and all that, and learned magic from kind of more of like an Aleister Crowley or Merlin type of vibe. So completely different set of magic, Yeah. It's kind of a poor old. So she, like, her stuff was like she could, conjure bees to attack a bee swarm, and she could use tentacles, which were roots from plants and stuff like that. Very nature druid stuff. Whereas the other one was, more Merlin type things, turning people into pillars of salt and calling down lightning on them and shit like that, kind of more of an Ozzy Osbourne song type of magic. So you can be all these different, types of magic. The other thing is magic doesn't just work. The lower you are in your proficiency in the magic, the more likely it is for you to fuck it up or to blow up in your face. So you roll a check on it when you cast a spell, and the higher the levels, the less likely it is for it to go awry. But if it goes awry, it could do all sorts of unintended things to you. Not a huge list, but just a handful of things. Yeah, stuff like that. From just not working to, ricocheting around and hitting the wrong person or something like that. So that's another portion of and not everything is a 1-day burn. There's certain spells you can use more than once, not all of them. Then I have a whole system for ritual magic and summoning that's completely different. And it gets more, it gets kind of the supernatural thing where you're making a pentagram, and kind of a demon summoning like vibe, stuff like that. And that kind of thing isn't something you can do in the game. That's not like conjuring up a fireball to kill an orc. That's something you got to go somewhere, usually spend a couple of days doing some, you know, if you ever watched Buffy, or something like that, there was when they resurrected Buffy, they had to go through all that shit and go to the right place and do this thing, and it took hours and all that. That's a kind of summoning magic. But the offset is it's harder to do, it takes longer to do, but if you do it right, you might get somebody or something that shows up that does cool shit for you. But it can also go wrong, and you can end up being possessed by demons or have the thing turn on you or something like that. So I always wanted there to be a risk to using the magic. Uh, and again, the higher you are, the less the risk, because you're really good at it, shit like that. So that was a big change. The character development I like a lot. The character development is kind of, it's not quick, and a lot of people I think will complain, because I've heard people do a lot of complaints about lengthy character generation. But the thing is it's a life path type system in some ways, and it's meant to. I didn't want people writing their own backstory that was like a novel and shit. I didn't want people to keep picking the same kind of character all the time. So it generates a limited, useful backstory that has elements that apply to the game, as opposed to somebody who just wants to wax the poetic or write something that somehow justifies. Wow. In my last life, I was, like I had one guy in Star Wars that wrote this backstory that basically was trying to justify being 7 levels ahead of everybody else. He was actually a former Imperial Super Commando Squad guy, and he could kick everybody's ass 10 times over and all that shit. I didn't want any of that. So you go through where you were born and what social class you were born into, and that tells you a lot about who you are. You could be an escaped slave, a poor person, middle class, blue. Well, I mean, fantasy doesn't have blue collar and white collar, but there's kind of a fantasy version of blue collar, white collar. Like you could be middle class blacksmith, or you could be kind of middle class like Bob Cratchit, somebody like that maybe. And it depending on what social class you're into, that'll give you your starting skills and your starting money. A lot of people got mad when I said not everybody has the same amount of starting money, but they don't. The richer the class you're born into, the more money you got to spend when you start playing your character. Is that fair? No, it's not supposed to be. but and then you have dependence. And I know a lot of people said I hate games where you have some people that, but you do have dependence. They're not necessarily a major thing, but all it does is give you a few different types of skills and just a little bit of an origin point. Now, sometimes they can be people that need shit. And the whole point of having that is that you have goals that you're trying to complete, no matter where you are and what else you're doing. So they kind of give you instant side quests and stuff like that to do. They're not just narratives that mean nothing. So, and depending on who your dependents are, that English isn't good, but like your dad, if one is your dad, maybe your dad taught you how to fish or something like that, or if it's your mom, maybe she taught you how to sew, something, that kind of thing. It gives you a couple of extra skills, stuff like that. Right? Yeah. So I probably should put that in there just for fun, because there are taxes and domains and stuff. But and there may be a reason, like maybe you're looking for a cure for your for your sister's polio or something like that. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of that kind of shit. But it gives a character a motivation instead of just being this rando person that started inside a tavern that wants to go adventuring, now you have some context as to what you're doing there and why you're doing it. And I think it helps facilitate role playing. I'm big into making sure people are doing role playing all the time instead of just, making it a hack and slash thing where it's all about just killing shit and stealing money. So that was part of the character setup. What else? So it's like 10 steps that you go through to create a character. It's actually I think it's 9. You add 10 if you're a magic user, because you have to figure out how many books you can memorize and stuff like that. So that's starting with the character thing. Everything else isn't super new or innovative. I use skill checks like West End Games D6 does. You have 4 or 5 levels from basic to heroic as to how difficult something is, and you have a skill modifier if you have some training in the skill that you're trying to attempt. That's it. There's no levels like in D&D. There's no first, second, third, and that shit. It's all skills, and you can improve your skill through, like I was explaining earlier, through the usage of the skill. You get some experience every time you use them and stuff like that. And it's got the experience for those is, well, it's not as big a number as like D&D. It's not super small, but I tried to keep the experience point level numbers in a scale where they don't get too huge, so you don't have to do 6-figure numbers or whatever it was. Not 6 figures, but stuff like that. How much do you detail setting up kingdom, etc. Taxes? Oh shit. That's where I got. Here's the thing. This is where if I can get people to not balk heavily at the combat mechanics and all that, and get them to accept that, then I plan to. Well, here's the thing. When I started reading what Macris was doing and the axe thing, I'm going after that. I want to out axe, and I've started along that. So yeah, so there'll be a lot of that. The detail is enormous on that. All righty. I'm going to jump off to, I think I've covered enough for everybody who's listening. I'm going to go maybe play some retro games or something. So, all righty. Talk to you next time.
It's carrying conquests, let's play TTRPGs done right. War games and gaming, we're storming with chains tonight. We got a new system best you'll ever see, a Paracosmic Convergence, a distance masterpiece. It's got the hit shots